Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, across Canada or around the world, we're going to talk about it here on Newsmakers. December 3rd is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And according to the United Nations, more than 1 billion people experience significant disability, including 8 million Canadians. Yet people with disabilities are more likely to live in poverty, receive lower wages, and face discrimination in employment. Our guest today is Anthony Frisina, an award-winning advocate for the disabled community and the founder of Above and Beyond. And Anthony joins us on Newsmakers. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rick. How are you?
I'm fantastic. International Day for Persons with Disabilities. What is it all about?
It's really about advancing and providing information to ensure that people with disabilities have a place and space for us to belong. As you alluded to in the intro, there's over 8 million Canadians, over 1 billion people worldwide that face barriers to inclusion. And we want to make sure that, International Day of Persons with Disabilities kind of amplifies that message, not just for December 3rd in particular, but going forward.
So how will you mark the day, and how should others mark the day?
Yeah, so for me, I'm really doing a lot of advocacy and, taking part in a lot of panels online and events that promote the importance of inclusion and including people with disabilities as we see fit, not as society dictates to us.
The theme this year is fostering disability-inclusive societies for advancing social progress. And you recently wrote, this is a mantra of hope. Why'd you write that?
Yeah, so it is a mantra of hope because there's a lot of gatekeeping, there's a lot of gaslighting, and there's a lot of perceptions of disability being vulnerable and negative. And we have to change that stereotype and that stigma to an opportunities-based approach. We find that we're in a place and space where there's a lot of dictation rather than collaboration when it comes to people with disabilities. We should be content with what we're given rather than fighting for what we deserve. And we need to have that voice, that place and space to belong, eradicating all the barriers that people with disabilities face. For example, snow and snow removal. We're just into the December season, the Christmas season, and snow is often a barrier for people with disabilities, a barrier for everybody, but more so for people with disabilities, and the challenging in navigating the sidewalks, the curb cuts, the curbs, bus shelters. Everything is more amplified, and we need to be at the forefront in eradicating those barriers proactively rather than being proactive. And really, this is what Above and Beyond is about, going above the stereotype, going above and beyond the compliance, the minimum standard,
right,
and exceeding that to ensure people with disabilities really, truly, and authentically belong and have the place and space for us to have the quality of life that we deserve.
You mentioned gatekeeping and gaslighting. Do you have examples or things that you've come across that kind of fit under these categories?
Yeah, oftentimes people with disabilities, Rick, are, compiled and compelled to being content with what we're given. We should be grateful for that. And don't get me wrong, I am grateful. But at the end of the day, it's not about, fair is not about getting the same thing. Fair is about getting everything that we need to be successful.
Right.
And when you've met one person with a disability, you've met one person with a disability. And, it's often underlined and hidden in the semblance of liability or safety. People are trying to gatekeep and gaslight your safety when it's a collaborative effort.
I've known you for many years now, and I remember you telling me a few years ago that Hamilton, or the Hamilton region, has a disproportionate number of people with disabilities compared to the rest of the nation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right now, Hamilton, the percentage of people with disabilities in Hamilton is 30%.
Okay.
And it's a demographic that grows each and every day, whether it's temporarily, permanent, situational, or even catastrophic. And ensuring that we have that capacity for allyship, that capacity for the collaboration, for people with disabilities to have that semblance of control of the quality of life that we want to live, not something that gets dictated by a mandate, or so to speak.
And a good example of this, and this is another thing that you opened my mind to, because me and I think many others wouldn't even think twice about this, is, you're in a store, let's say, a grocery store, and there's things on the top shelf, which, someone may not be able to reach, but you want to be given the freedom, the liberty to kind of get that item.
Yeah, more often than not, I'll bring a grabber with me. I'll bring a portable grabber with me if something is higher up that I'll reach. Or I'll ask a passerby if I could borrow their height, for example.
Yes.
For me, it's about putting that humor towards the disability that I have and kind of, not making light of it, but also just kind of showcasing that, that need is there, not only for people with disabilities, for everybody to be kind to one another and showing support and respect.
It's really a teachable moment for both parties.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Disabilities Act here in Ontario 20 years ago was enacted, and it had an ambitious goal, which it clearly has not found.
Came and went.
Let's talk about that.
20 years ago, on June 13th, 2005, the AODA, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, was born, with a 20-year promise for Ontario to be fully accessible by January 1st, 2025. I've recently come upon this quote, that preaching patience is granting permission to procrastinate.
And we're in the procrastination stage.
We're in the procrastination stage. But with procrastination becomes tolerance.
Right.
How tolerant do people with disabilities have to be to, get the equitable opportunities that we deserve? Oftentimes, it's a subject of cost. Well, let's look at it as an investment. Yeah. And the return on the investment is invaluable. The curbs, the infrastructure, affordable housing needs to lend itself to accessible housing. Thinking proactively and ensuring the places and spaces have an equitable opportunity for people with disabilities to enjoy. Transit, for example. Getting from point A to point B with dignity and respect. There's going to be hidden barriers. There's going to be unforeseen circumstances, but there also needs to be contingency plans in place to ensure that the disabled community is treated equitably.
You mentioned fully accessible in 20 years, and clearly we haven't, reached that standpoint. What does fully accessible look like?
Everybody, everywhere.
Okay.
Everybody going everywhere on their terms. Oftentimes we get taken back by transit or issues that really shouldn't be in place right now. We get our gate kept, our quality of life is gate kept. We have to be proactive. There's no spontaneity for people with disabilities, and that really needs to change. Going from point A to point B. No accessible Ubers, for example. Most of us, including myself, rely on darts because there's no cabs, for example. And the cost of living, as you alluded to in the intro, is greater for people with disabilities because of the added things that we need, such as medication and other incidentals.
So where are we falling short, and how long of a list is that?
We're falling short in many things, Rick, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, that's our reality. We're falling short in the sense of not getting what we need when we need it. We're often at a time and a place that when people turn 18, for example, to start the process for ODSP is an 8-month process. Whereas, now there's a semblance of dictation where, those who choose for MAID is a 3-month process from start to finish.
Interesting.
Where are we at that point? What is that to say about people with disabilities and their place and space to belong?
What are others in the community saying about, that the barriers that they face? They must be quite frustrated.
Oh, absolutely. So many people that I've come in contact with, have always said to me that, it's the getting from point A to point B, inclusive programming, not having enough educational assistance in schools, access to schools, things of that nature, access to employment, access to public spaces, open spaces, outdoor spaces. There's places like Marydale Park, for example, that's Ontario's first fully accessible park and recreational facility. Accessibility and inclusion looks different to different people because, we abide by the code, we abide by the AODA, we abide by the minimum standard of compliance. And utilizing that lived experience, taking that next step is really what will advance the social progress of accessibility and inclusion, not only here in Hamilton, but globally.
So what needs to be done? What's on the agenda?
What really needs to be done is, utilizing people with disabilities and our lived experience to get things done. Having people with disabilities from start to finish be part of all solutions. And, far too often people with disabilities are approached and talked to, but they're talked to by obligation rather than intention.
Mm-hmm.
We need intentional focus on persons with disabilities being part of solutions to advance that progress.
You've been a keynote speaker at many events, whether it's in Hamilton or Halton, Niagara, the GTA. Is there a community that's doing things right or doing things better than others?
I mean, there's a lot of communities that are actually now taking that important step in listening to people with disabilities. I know I've been working with the City of Toronto on the intelligent transportation systems and advancing the progress of how we navigate our streets, how we navigate construction zones, work zones, how we navigate from point A to point B, on the public sidewalks and things like advanced lights or certain types of technologies that allow people with disabilities to cross streets safely and navigate the streets and the sidewalks safely, curb cuts, and being proactive and being assertive and having attention to detail. Things such as, potholes, for example, curb cuts, ensuring that they're safe. And I feel like safety gets overlooked and overshadowed because it's just something that gets misunderstood.
Yeah. How are community officials responding to this? Are they thinking, yeah, we can do this? Or are they looking at the costs associated with these changes and saying, we're going to have to put it on the back burner?
Well, I'd rather invest in solutions, Rick, than pay for injuries.
There you go.
I mean, that's really the approach that I've kind of given our city officials and our community officials and high-level business owners. Putting that place and space for people with disabilities to feel safe, to feel like they belong. Oftentimes when, there's events happening, there's the question, do you have any accessibility requirements? Take that step and provide those accessibility requirements in advance, whether it be closed captioning, whether it be an accessible public space, the washrooms being fully accessible. Take those steps in your planning process for your events so that people with disabilities don't have to feel like they're a burden for coming to your event because you're asking those requirements.
Right.
It's the same as dietary restrictions. It's the same as, potential food diets.
Yeah. What gets you excited? Is there something that's happening that you're looking at thinking, yeah, this is amazing?
Well, I mean, for Above and Beyond, it's really about taking that next step beyond the code, as I said. I think we have opportunities to build here in Hamilton. I'm hopeful that, city officials and community members will be part of the solution with me. It's not a one-person job. It has to be in collaboration, with yourself, CH, communities, and ensuring that we have that future of belonging for everybody.
Let's talk about barriers that you face on a day-to-day basis that someone might not recognize because they don't face those same barriers. What would be among the top items that day after day you're having to overcome?
Transit. Getting from point A to point B. I am a DARTS user, and I know DARTS is a shared ride service, and I fundamentally respect that about DARTS. But the shared ride service and the logistics have to make sense. Getting from point A to point B on time. Certain weather elements can be a factor, which is understandable.
Sure.
But having those resources, having that capacity to get from point A to point B with dignity is important for everybody.
Let's talk about Above and Beyond. You're the founder of this initiative, of this organization. Why did you start it? When did you start it? I
started this in 2016. My mom passed away just recently in 2016. And I started this necessarily in her honor because she always told me that, it's not about being content. It's about, striving for these goals, whether they're heightened or, so to speak, or but it's getting to those goals and reaching those goals, going above and beyond what people tell you,
right,
what people believe you can achieve. As a young child, you're going to these appointments, you're struggling to find your place in space. And through Above and Beyond, where I met John Spatazzo, the former executive director of the Catholic Youth Organization, he was the first person outside of my community, family, and friends that gave me that ambition and desire to continue that. Started writing a book in 2016, no intention at the time to publish. Just kind of wanted to recall stories, like my story with John. And then it just kind of blossomed from there. Cable 14 gave me the opportunity to produce a show of a subject matter that was, near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And that kind of really how Above and Beyond blossomed.
What did John say to you that propelled you forward to take this on?
John said simply, "Hi, my name is John. Welcome to Camp Marydale." Simple but effective. It's a phrase that I recall daily because the welcome part, feeling welcome in our community, feeling welcome in Hamilton. I felt that it was at that time where I needed to take the initiative to help others, in spaces like mine to belong.
Yeah.
And that's why I take part in so many volunteer organizations, take part in so many boards, and giving that opportunity for others to be value.
Yeah. It's a great story, and it just shows you, like, just something small and simple to John, I think, meant the world to you, and probably a lot of others that were in your shoes as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you took on Above and Beyond and launched this thing, did you think it was going to be as amazing as it is already?
That was my hope.
Yeah.
That was my hope, to go beyond the minimum standard, go beyond the compliance, and just exceeding what those expectations were. The gatekeeping, the gaslighting needs to be eradicated. The stereotypes, the stigmas, the opportunities for people with disabilities are endless. But we have to be able to have allies to understand that, we're not a liability. We're not vulnerable. We're here to belong. It's about getting what we need to be successful. And that looks different for me than it does somebody else with a disability.
Sure. Yeah.
And, disability welcomes anyone at any time, as we said earlier. So let's be proactive as a community to be welcoming to everybody.
You've spoken to a number of individuals, companies, organizations, communities. What's your message to them, and what's their takeaway?
It's about belonging, It's about ensuring that, beyond what we do to meet our quotas, whether it be from a business proposal. But when you build accessibility into your portfolios as a business, as a community, as an organization, you amplify the social progress of the society and the community that you live in. And it's just better business for ensuring that everybody belongs.
There's many organizations that ask you to come in to say, hey, how, we can't envision this space, whatever that space is, with an accessible mind, because they're not living that. And so they'll bring you in to say, hey, where do we need to improve here to make this accessible? What's that like?
It's amazing. I recently got a call from officials at Hamilton Stadium to talk about what the washroom facilities look like, and so how certain things should be situated. And I'll give them, my honest opinion, honest feedback, because certain things may appear accessible by the quota or standard. But what
in
if
practicality,
right? Practicality. What if we do things slightly different to be more accessible and more inclusive for people?
Right.
A height of a toilet paper roll, a height of a grab bar, the correct grab bars, positioning, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, what your dominant sides are, the space for a personal care attendant for them to assist if necessary. All of these things aren't necessarily considered when, certain washrooms are built.
Sure. And so do you find that those changes are then made? For instance, Hamilton Stadium, are they making these changes?
They're coming.
Okay.
They're coming.
Excellent. That's exciting.
And I'm excited for that. I'm excited that, people are reaching out to me, asking me for these input, because the slightest change makes the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Still with Above and Beyond, you mentioned you're on Cable 14.
Yes.
There's a new season coming as well, and a marathon. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the new season will begin in February of 2026. And December the 3rd, we're going to be airing a 3-part mini marathon from 5:30 to 7 p.m.
Nice.
On 3 of my favorite episodes that took place this past season, including my 50th episode.
Okay, well, congratulations on that.
Thank you. We had a organization to speak to ASL interpretation, and we had a gentleman who has a song called No Need to Speak. His name is Marshall Dane. And that song was accompanied by American Sign Language interpretation. So that's going to be part of the marathon airing on December 3rd.
What are some of your favorite programs or moments or maybe guests that you've had on the show?
Oh, I had a lot of great guests, from Sarah Jama to the 50th episode with the ASL interpretation to just amplifying different things, like the Hamilton Accessible Sport Council is one of the boards that I represent, kind of talking to opportunities and places and spaces that, give people the opportunity to see, disability inclusion in action.
What's in store for the next 50 episodes?
To be determined.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Do you hope to take it that long?
I hope to take it as far as I can take it.
Okay,
I'm not quitting anytime soon, and I don't plan to.
Yeah. Oh, good for you. And congrats again on hitting the 50.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Tiger Cats.
Yep.
I know you're a big Tiger Cats fan.
I think you are too.
I am too. Yes, not necessarily by default. We live and we die with some of the wins and losses that this team showcases for us.
The ups and downs and the stress.
Yeah, I don't want to take this off topic, but this is a big part of your life and many Hamiltonians' lives, and those around the Hamilton area have grown up cheering for this team. What's it been like as a Ticats fan watching this team over the last number of years?
And what I love about the CFL and the Ticats, it's about community. I got into the Ticats at 6 years old. My dad brought me to my first game. And,
Old Ivor Wynn.
Yeah, Old Ivor Wynn Stadium. This was when I was able to walk at the time. And, there's stories that go along. I don't know if I can say this here, but
this is a safe space.
We can edit this out.
This is a safe space.
Okay. So my dad bought me a hot dog at 6 years old. Okay. And I, me being stubborn at the time, probably still stubborn 40 plus years later. Yeah. I go to open the ketchup packet, struggled with it.
Yeah.
Hot dog is there. Finally get the ketchup packet open. Completely missed the hot dog.
Oh no.
Goes into this lady's hair in front of us. Big play happens in the game. She throws her hands on her head.
Oh no.
And she thinks it's a different substance, let's say. So
now, did you realize at this point that you had sprayed her hair with ketchup?
We did.
Okay, and you didn't mention anything.
We declined to
comment. Was she wearing an
comment.
Argos jersey?
No, but her hair was very up there, so to speak.
Okay.
So she didn't notice that the ketchup was on there either. So that really is kind of like part and parcel to, kind of one of my first experiences to the Ticats, one of my old physiotherapists being the niece of a former player, Pete Giftopoulos, and, one of my first experiences on the field, meeting players like back in the 90s, like Osbaldiston and Giftopoulos and Grover Covington actually coming to my birthday party when I was 8 years old. And that's really what is my passion for the Ticats is about. Yeah. Us both actually being Leaf fans as well, we're still waiting for
We're not going to get into the Leafs today.
But the point of that is we're really just trying to get to that holy grail.
Yes.
Getting to that Grey Cup, getting to that Stanley Cup, we're still waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you on the whole community aspect, and this is not just a Ticats thing, but a CFL thing, is that this league, through its players and certainly the organizations, are really in the community more so than any other professional sports league. That's awesome to see.
And it really is awesome to see, getting to see players outside of their elements, and being part of the elements that I've been a part of, whether it's Treat Accessibly, whether it's All Abilities All-Stars, Liam Dobson coming to that event, and a few of the Ticat cheerleaders, to Tim White coming to Treat Accessibly. And just kind of seeing the excitement that Hamilton has to offer. Yeah. It going to your question earlier, that's really what gives me hope. The ambition and desire for wanting change to happen. It's about, having the conversations today, but also those conversations, lending itself to action. Yeah. And not necessarily looking at it from a cost perspective, but more of an investment opportunity.
That's a big factor for sure. And you mentioned Treat Accessibly too. This is an awesome program. And if you're not familiar, well, I'll let you describe it. It's basically around Halloween and being accessible.
Yeah, founded by Rich Padullo. Treat Accessibly was designed to showcase how to do accessible Halloween on Halloween. So, for example, we trick or treat at the end of the driveway. We minimize sounds,
lights
as well, and we give people the place and space to belong. Things we're focused on, things like, allergies. We're focused on, sensory,
right.
Providing the accessibility component to belonging. I mean, even the costumes are phenomenal. A couple of years ago, my friend Molly was, who does use a wheelchair as well, transitioned the wheelchair into Taylor Swift's getaway car.
Nice.
It was great. I mean, I transitioned this wheelchair into a pickup truck.
Nice.
So, the
possibilities, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Great going. Just back to the Ticats.
Yeah.
Your view of 2025 and then going into 2026.
My view of 2025.
Yes.
So close.
So close yet so
close
far.
Yeah. We just need to take it to the next level. We need to, finish the job. Seconds left on the clock in the CFL is.
It's an eternity.
It's an eternity. Yeah. Exactly. But congratulations to Saskatchewan for winning the Grey Cup. Yeah.
Your view of 2026. Are you hopeful or are you optimistic this team can finally break its Grey Cup?
I am always hopeful. I'm always optimistic, Rick. Going into 2026, we still have a great team. We've got to sign a lot of our free agents. We've got to bring a lot of people back. And I think because of what Ted Govea built, we have a lot of cohesion together. We have a lot of players that know each other and just kind of taking it to that next level.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, let's circle back to the accessibility. What's your message to people who maybe don't have this top of mind every day?
Well, my message to our community is simple. Accessibility benefits everybody. It may not look like it today, but tomorrow it could be the utmost benefit to somebody. And if you think with accessibility at the front of mind, you're going to benefit the community endlessly.
Well said. And we got work to do.
We certainly got work to do.
Anthony, thanks for stopping by today.
Thanks so much.
All right. That is a wrap for the Newsmakers podcast. A huge thank you to the behind-the-scenes all-star cast for making things work. Tickety-boo. If you liked today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment as well. Catch the Newsmakers podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.